Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
Hello and thanks for joining Corporate Governance Platform. Corporate Governance Platform is brought to you by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. And we are transmitting live from MITV Lagos. I am Dr. Tunde Odeyemi. And the focus of our conversation this evening is going to be on the role of the board as a strategic leader for company. The role of the board as provider of strategic leadership for company. And to lead in the conversation is a very distinguished fellow of ICSAN, Mr. Omogbemi Adelagun, FCIS. Mr. Adelagun is a cerebral business lawyer and corporate strategy doyen. He prides a deep wealth of multinational, cross-industry and all-weather experiences that span over 2 decades across key sectors. Prior to his current role with RIP and Ascensia as a consulting partner and faculty lead, he was the General Manager, Legal and Governance Affairs at Alcon Nigeria, an engineering, procurement and construction company in the oil and energy sector. Mr. Adelagun is a law alumnus of Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, and was called to the bar in the year 1999. He holds a MBA in International Business and Management from Royal Holloway University of London and an executive LLM in International Business Law. Mr. Adelagun is a fellow of ICSAN and a fellow of Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, United Kingdom. He is equally a fellow of the Institute of Corporate Administration, a very consummate corporate doyen whose management research works have been cited by top-rated global institutions and whose corporate projects exploits have been recognized in Nigeria and corporate Africa. Mr. Adelagun is a recipient of the African Award for Professional Leadership Excellence from African Development International in the year 2018. Mr. Adelagun, Omogbemi Adelagun, it's nice to have you on Corporate Governance Platform.
Thank you, Dr. Yemi. It's a pleasure as well.
Okay, we are going to be discussing something that I also feel it is very important to corporate governance, and that is the role of the board as provider of strategic leadership for company. We are going to be looking generally into the effectiveness of the board, members of the board of directors, and so on and so forth. And I believe this is going to educate our viewers out there. And our viewers can be part of it. To be part of today's show, you only need to send a text message to either ask a question or make a comment. The number to send your text message to is 080-2323-1287. I take the number again, 080-2323-1287. Please only text message, no phone call. And please do us a favor by putting your name on the text message to contribute to the discussion or the conversation this evening. So, Mr. Adelagun, the role of the board as provider of strategic leadership for companies. The first our viewers would like to know is who is a director? Who are the members of the board of directors?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Odeyemi. Traditionally, if we are going to define directors, it simply means the agents and trustees of the shareholders who are appointed by the shareholders to lead, to manage, and direct the affairs of the company for the interest of the shareholders. But because of a lot of development in corporate governance thinking, especially in corporate governance objectives, the definition of directors as the trustees and agents of the shareholders.
Okay.
For the interest of the shareholders, have metamorphosized into a new contemporary definition,
Okay.
which is that directors are not just for the interest of the shareholders, but also for the interest of the stakeholders.
Okay.
So this means that when we are defining directors now, we say directors are agents and trustees of shareholders who are duly appointed to run the affairs of the company, not only for the interest of the shareholders, but also for the interest of other critical stakeholders.
Beautiful. Now, an effective board is necessary for a successful company.
Yes.
Effective board is necessary for a successful company. Can you explain the word effective in relation to board of directors activities?
Well, in fact, I used to say that board effectiveness is synonymous to corporate governance.
Okay.
That once a board is effective, once a board of directors is effective, there is corporate governance in that organization. What is the word effective? That's what we're trying to look at. Okay. The same way, we have to take a cue from the definition, from that traditional definition of directors that says that directors are trustees of shareholders or agents of shareholders for the interest of shareholders, now metamorphosizing into directors as trustees and agents of the shareholders for the interest of stakeholders. Okay. The same way we are seeing also a development in the word, in the coining of the word effectiveness, so that, you know, if you look at the traditional definition of board of directors as agent of shareholders, it delimits the directors even in terms of evaluating them, because it simply means that directors are only working for the interests of shareholders. So because of that traditional definition of directors, we saw a lot of corporate governance misdeeds, whereby directors, in order to fulfill shareholders' interests, will cook books. They do aggressive accounting and a lot of other, reckless acts. But if we take the new definition, which is saying you have to also take into consideration the interests of other stakeholders, not just the shareholders that appointed you, then we will now find out that the word effectiveness there will move beyond measuring the effectiveness of director in relation only to shareholders' value, but also to stakeholders' value and the concept of sustainability. So if you look at the Global Corporate Governance Forum, when they were defining the word effective, what is an effective board? They were able to tell us 3 C's, the 3 C's of an effective board. Is that capacity. Capacity there is defined in terms of legal capacity. Okay. That, for example, the directors must have legal capacity to be directors. You must not be bankrupt, just like what Kama says. You must not have been convicted of a crime. You must not have been involved or disqualified as a director. You must first of all, as a member of the board, you must have that legal capacity to exist as director. So the second C is competence. That apart from the legal capacity, competence here is defined in terms of professional competence. You must have that knowledge, that experience to be able to, for you as members of the board to strategically think and drive the organization to performance. So that's competence. Then the last is capability. Capability there is in terms of strategic capability. Strategic capability is the ability of the board to achieve the goals and objectives of the organization. And what is the goal of the objective of the organization? Don't forget the definition of the director we gave, that goal now is beyond shareholders' value. Goal of the director, just like the goal of every company now, is also to maximize, not just to maximize shareholders' value, but also to balance the interest of stakeholders. And not also to maximize shareholders' values only in the short term or in the short run, but also in the long run. So sustainability is also a critical aspect of measuring that strategic capability of directors. The 3 C's we should not forget: legal capacity, competence, and capability, which is strategic capability to achieve sustainability and stakeholders' effectiveness.
Wonderful. You are really on fire, Mr. Adelagun. We have seen effectiveness to work with the 3 C's that you have just mentioned. Yes. Now, what are the disadvantages of a weak board in realization of the company's objectives?
Well, what force is a weak board? What is a weak board? What characterizes a weak board?
No, we are talking about effectiveness.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So let's even know what is a weak board. We've talked about the 3 C's. What is a weak board? The best way to describe a weak board was given by the Global Reporting Initiative in 2021.
Okay.
When they came out and say, what are the 4 characteristics that weak board? Number 1, a weak board is the reason for all corporate governance failure. That's what they say. That a browser, when you just took a global browser of all corporate failures all over the world, that what you see was a weak board, an ineffective board. And what characterizes this weak board? 1 is that an incompetent board. A board where the members of the directors don't even have the financial, background or understanding of business or accounting or whatever, or the strategy or the strategic nature of the business of the company. And then they are on the board. To do what? Just like what we saw in JP Morgan Chase, where 3 members of directors, were on the risk committee, but they never had any financial experience, no banking experience, no trade floor experience. So when the chief whistleblower, of the company, whistleblower, and told them what was happening about the chief treasury officer gambling with over $6.2 billion of the company, they could not understand. That's an example of incompetent board. The second type of weak board is a sleepy board. A board can be competent. You may have erudite entrepreneurs, corporate doyens on the board, but they can be incompetent. They can be a sleepy board. Sleepy board here means docile. They are just on the board. They only come to the board to say yes to the dominant personality. They only look at what as the management has done, and they tick list. That's all. Drink tea and they collect their sitting allowance. So that's a sleepy board or a docile board. The third is a romantic board, the loving board, the kind of board that is always loving, showing loyalty to the chairman or to the CEO if the CEO is the dominant personality, so that they can be in their good books. So they don't criticize, they don't review, they only come to the board to show loyalty. Just to show loyalty, we are in support of the MD, we are in support of the chairman. Anything they bring, they take list. That is a romantic or loving board. Just like what we saw, the kind of board we saw, you will see the case of First Bank of Nigeria in 2021. When CBN sacked the whole board of directors. One of the reasons they gave was that the board was romanticizing the former chairman of FBN, Oba, who was owner of Honeywell. They gave over 75 billion to Honeywell. First Bank gave 75 billion loan to FBN. To Honeywell. And CBN said you must.
The brand. Okay. You have made us to understand what a weak board is, and different shades of weak board.
Yes.
And I think on that note, I'd like to call for a very short break to take a message from our sponsor. We'll be right back to continue our conversation with Mr. Omogbemi Adelagun. Please don't go away.
Do you have continuity or a succession plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. Do you have continuity or a succession plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals. Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.
You're welcome back. It's the Corporate Governance Platform, and we are transmitting live from MITV. The topic of our discussion this evening is on the role of the board as provider of strategic leadership. And Barrister Omogbemi Adelagun has been doing justice to that topic. However, before I go into my next question, I'd like to reinforce the announcement from our sponsor. The ICSAN June Diet Exam. The registration for the ICSAN June Diet Exam is going to close on May 19th, and there is free online lectures. If you need to know more about that, kindly visit ICSAN website. And secondly, there is a training coming up, virtual training on optimizing core competence skills for corporate secretaries and administrators and other professionals. To be part of this training, please call 070-111-30059, and the training is coming up on the 18th of May. And lastly, there is going to be a roundtable on corporate governance for the year 2023. To get details, kindly visit ICSAN website for more details. So, Barrister Adelagun, you have made us to understand what is an effective board. You have also gone ahead to tell us what a weak board entails. Now, what is the composition? What is the notion of the board of directors on the board structure and composition of the board in the context of corporate governance?
Well, if you understand the history of corporate governance itself, we have said it and we keep saying it, that the whole problem of corporate governance that culminates to corporate governance failure and corporate failures or even corporate scandal is the issue of dominant personality. That's just the major problem
on the board
of and all the corporate governance principles, codes that have come out to say, okay, let us try and structure the board in a way to ensure that there is efficiency, there is seamlessness in decision making, is to cut down on the power and influence of the dominant personality on the board. That's most important first one. Okay. For example, the rule that says the CEO and the chairman must not be one and the same person, shows, clearly that what we want to achieve there is separation of power. Power corrupt and absolute power corrupt. Absolute.
Separation of power between the chairman and CEO.
Okay. So that there can be checks and balances. The rule that says, okay, no two members of the family must be on the board, except it's a family business. It's also something that shows clearly that we are trying to achieve a kind of dispassionate, thinking on the board, where people will come on the board. There is no emotional link, just that the issue of, conversion, the independence director on the board, and so on. So the whole issue is, one, to cut down on dictatorship. Secondly, to allow for efficiency and division of labor, specialization. Just like, for example, when they said the board is structured into committees, we should have risk management committees, we should have audit committees, we should have business and finance and investment committee, is to allow those who are on the board, to be able to focus on their own areas of speciality and give their best. And so allow for division of labor, separation, specialization. That's just it. All culminate down into efficiency. That's
okay.
It.
Now, what should the board do upon finding out that there are some directors that are not competent and they are on the board?
Okay.
What do you think the board should do?
Well, that role or that function will fall on the chairman first and foremost, provided the chairman is not the corporate. Is that the chairman will call the hearing director,
okay,
advise him perhaps to resign, because you are not number one, you are not competent. We just discovered that you are not competent to be on the board. Maybe, for example, if you follow the CBN competency matrix, and the core industry regulators, there are competency requirements that you must fulfill before you are a board member. So if you don't fulfill it, there is no need to continue to sit on the board. But instead of drawing a battle of having to call shareholders meeting or extraordinary meeting, it's better to advise that director to tender his resignation. But where, for example, there have been significant losses or damages have resulted from that director's incompetence, or significant losses have resulted from his lack of dedication to the company's affairs, is to invoke Section 288 of CAMA, follow the procedure, because which says that you can remove a director. It doesn't matter whatever is the content of the service contract or whatever tenure you have agreed with him. A director can be removed at any time. But what is important is that you must follow the procedure that are stated in CAMA. Some of those procedures, you give the directors a query. It's just like a query that these are the issues we have observed. The directors will make a written representation to defend himself if he feels he should defend himself. And then you give him a 21-day special notice of extraordinary general meeting of shareholders, if it's not an AGM, for the directors to come and face the shareholder and defend himself. So there must be their fair hearing procedure must be fulfilled, because if you do not fulfill that fair hearing procedure, it can invalidate the procedure. And you can see what happened in 2010 when the Supreme Court reinstated the MD Bernard Longe to the board. Some of those things you think can never be possible.
Now, in order for this not to happen, does ICSAN organize or provide training for directors in order to enhance their competency, in order to make them perform their roles effectively?
Yes, I know that there have been quite a number of collaborative trainings that have been done between ICSAN and the Institute of Directors of Nigeria. Yes, especially on board effectiveness and the role of the company secretary in fostering board effectiveness. So I know there have been such collaboration between ICSAN and IOD. In that regard.
Another leg to that question is that does ICSAN have a database or plan to have a database, probably now or in the future, of proposed non-executive directors that organizations can easily come to ICSAN for and get recommendations in order not to have ineffectiveness on their board? Does ICSAN have something like that, or propose to have it?
I think yes. Like I said, just like it occurs with also the collaborative training, it has to be done in collaboration with the Institute of Directors, because that will enable us to have a formidable, credible list of non-executive directors.
Okay, what final advice do you have for corporate bodies out there on how to choose directors and how to make their directors to be effective?
Yes.
Before we wrap up.
Well, apart from regular trainings on corporate governance, business governance, strategy that you can send your directors on at regular intervals, is that you must develop a performance appraiser, what we call a 360-degree appraiser for measuring board performance of members of the board. 360-degree is that it is, like the board evaluation we're doing now, you only give directors the questionnaires to fill, and perhaps most importantly, we respect the opinions of an independent non-executive director, on the board when we are doing the board evaluation. But in terms of measuring the performance, it should extend beyond the board itself. The board members, each board member should be evaluated and appraised by critical shareholders, by even employees, by management. It should be a 360-degree form of appraisal, because this will foster collaborative leadership. other members of the board know that even an employee can or her.
Barrister Omogbemi Adelagun. Unfortunately, we don't have much time to continue with the conversation. We want to thank you very much for being part of today's conversation on the role of the board as provider of strategic leadership for companies. And that is the much we can take. We want to thank our viewers and the production crew for doing a fantastic job. Before I wrap up, I would like to wrap up with the quote from a British mathematician and a Nobel Prize winner, Bertrand Russell, who says, "The good life is one that is inspired by love and guided by knowledge." The good life is the one that is inspired by love and guided by knowledge. And on that basis, I invite you to join us again next week, same station, same time. I remain Dr. Tunde Odeyemi. Bye for now.
Do you have continuity or association plan for your business?
Has anyone shared the concept of sustainability with you?
What about the need to protect the rights of minority shareholders?
What are those ingredients germane to having effective meetings?
For these and many more, tune into Corporate Governance Platform every Thursday on MITV, your darling station, on DSTV 255 and UHF 43 at 4:30 p.m.
Corporate Governance Platform is your best medium for informative and educative strategies for the practice of the corporate governance profession.
Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, the hub of governance professionals.